Good morning, friends, and I'm going to start off with some really good news. I'm on a streak. It's been almost 3 months since my last bout of post-exertional malaise, or PEM. It happened in late April, and before then, I was probably smacking into that PEM wall once a week on average, sometimes twice a week. Yeah, and on those weeks, as you can imagine, there was a lot of time lying in bed. Today, we're going to examine what led me to that last bout of PEM and why I haven't had it since then. By the way, if you've been able to reduce or even eliminate your bouts of PEM, please say how you've done that in the comment section so that all of us can learn from it and maybe apply it to ourselves. Now first, a little refresher for those of you who aren't suffering from long COVID and may have forgotten or not know what PEM really is. Simply put, if I push myself too hard, I crash. Now, this pushing myself too hard almost always involves physical activity, but it can involve mental activity as well. As an example, I may be having a busy day. I'm doing work, I'm cleaning up around the house, I'm going on a walk, that kind of thing. And by doing work, I mean working on my eBay business. I'm retired, and my eBay business takes maybe an hour or two a day, and that's it. Now, if I've done too much, I don't feel it right away. Let's say I go for a walk and maybe I go a little bit farther and try to push it a little bit too much. I'm fine during the walk and I'm fine when I'm done. And then a few hours later, everything just takes a nosedive. I feel physically and mentally fatigued, and this is not regular fatigue. This is fatigue to the extent that I have trouble doing anything or even focusing on anything. If someone engages me in conversation, I really have trouble focusing on what's being said. I just give a zombie stare back in return. I go into more detail about this in one of my other videos, the one that's called The Upside of Long COVID, and I talk about all my quote-unquote superpowers, my symptoms, and the most dreaded of these are indeed PEM. And when this happens, it's not just that I'm crashing later in the day and I feel it in the evening. The next day, it'll be more of the same. And then if I'm having a really bad bout, even the day after that. As an example, if I do it on a Monday, by that evening I'm crashing and I may not feel better and really feel like doing anything until that Thursday morning. Still, I have to say that I'm grateful that it doesn't last any longer than that. I've heard stories from other people who, if they hit a round of post-exertional malaise, they're feeling it for many days before they really start to feel like they can do anything. I'm also grateful for the fact that I got long COVID after I was retired. So by that point, I was obviously financially secure enough to retire. I know some of you out there, you need to work and you can't work. Now then, 5 days before that last bout of PEM, our family had just come back from vacationing in Ireland and Iceland and felt pretty good doing it. And I have to say, it was a great trip. We were celebrating my youngest getting her college degree, and she's the creator of the great artwork you're seeing on these videos. So she got to pick the destinations and we had a blast. However, during that entire trip, I kept waiting for the PEM to strike. And I was certain that it was going to strike because on the trip, I was way more active than I had been in months. I mean, really active. Now, I keep track of my steps, how many I take each day, and for the average for March, it came out to about 5,400 steps a day, which isn't very good for me, but it's not nothing. It does mean that, hey, I was not bedridden, or at least not bedridden except for when I had bouts of PEM. Still, 5,400 steps a day is a long way from where I used to be when I was training and running ultra marathon. And yeah, Bryce Canyon 100 miler, I did that. During that trip in April, I was doing every day double the amount of steps that I averaged in March. And on a few days, triple that amount. And then one day, even quadruple that amount when I got over 23,000 steps in one day. And yet with all of that, no post-exertional malaise. Simply put, I was pleasantly stunned. Unfortunately then, 5 days after returning home, I smacked right into that PEM wall. Now, I had gone for a walk that day and the day before and had been pretty active both of those days. Based on my trends from earlier in the year, I should have expected the PEM to hit. However, after the vacation, I thought maybe I've turned a corner because my step total for those 2 days wasn't a lot. It was definitely less than when I was on vacation and more closer to the average that I had in March. So that leaves the obvious question, why did I encounter PEM then and not when I was way more active on the trip? I mean, could it mean that I need to go on a permanent vacation? If so, could I get my doctor to prescribe that for me? And is it covered by my insurance? Well, no. So I began to analyze what I had been doing and not doing on my vacation as opposed to afterward. What was different? And different enough to cause the change. The first thing that occurred to me is the difference in elevation. Now, I live in Colorado at about 6,000 feet. The entire trip was spent close to sea level, and there's just more oxygen in the air at sea level than there is at 6,000 feet. So my lungs are used to processing the thinner air. At sea level, it's harder to get shortness of breath and fatigue if there's just more oxygen in every breath you take. This is why a lot of endurance athletes train at elevation. And then when they go down to sea level to run a race, their lungs are in great shape. That's the first thing that was different about my trip, the abundance of oxygen. Next, while I was getting in way more steps on the trip, those steps were coming at a much more moderate pace. The steps were coming on guided tours or leisurely walking around wherever we happened to be at the time. There was no hurry to do anything, and there were long intervals of rest throughout the day. For example, when we were on a bus tour, we'd go to a place, walk around for 20 to 30 minutes, and then hop back on the bus and drive for a while until we got to the next place. These intervals on the bus allowed us time to rest, relax, and even doze off on occasion. I think that this pacing of my activities was really beneficial for me, allowing myself to recover a little bit each day while I was doing things. The third thing that I thought of that helped me was the fact that I was not taxing my brain much while on vacation. I put the whole eBay business on hold, and the only thing I was concerned about was enjoying the day, not focusing too hard on anything, and just having a nice, pleasant time. Now, these three ideas about why I wasn't smacking into PEM occurred to me even while I was on the trip because, like I said, I could not figure out what was going on that was different. So I started analyzing it even while I was still on the travel. Now, here's the last thing that occurred to me as far as why I didn't have PEM during the trip. And that really came to me a week after we were back. A couple days after that last PEM crash, I was watching one of the recovery videos. This particular video talked about a study that involved the use of Celebrex, Valtrex, and Paxlovid in reducing some long COVID symptoms. Now, specifically, it talked about reducing flare-ups of herpes, and I don't have that problem, but the video seemed to say, hey, this seems to be working in general as well. And I provided a link to that video below. Here's the thing. I have an existing prescription to Celebrex, one of those three drugs. Now, I only take Celebrex as needed, and I usually don't need to take it. So it's infrequent. Say my lower back pain flares up, I'll pop a Celebrex and then I won't take one for another couple of weeks. However, on the trip, and as a precautionary measure, I decided to start taking it daily, every morning, starting the morning of the flight, because I didn't want to get on a long plane flight and start really aching with nowhere to move in a cramped seat. And then every morning after that, I took it for the entire trip. And obviously, like I said, did not get PEM, but I didn't know any kind of possible connection between me taking that drug and not having PEM. So as soon as the trip stopped, I stopped taking it. And then 5 days later, I ran right into that PEM brick wall. Or I should say, I walked into the PEM brick wall because, yeah, I'm not running right now. Do I think Celebrex is the reason why I haven't had a bout of PEM in almost 3 months? Well, that would be a resounding no. See, I've been working with my physical therapist since even before the trip, and we've been incorporating a lot of pacing into my daily activity. And by pacing, I mean doing things more in moderation, not overdoing it, staying busy but not too busy as to smack into PEM. And that pacing includes taking naps daily too, at least one a day, usually two. And I know these things have helped a lot, but I believe the Celebrex is helping as well. Talking to the PA that I've been working with at the Colorado, the UC Health post-COVID clinic, told her about what I've been doing, and she said that this makes sense, and that includes the taking of the Celebrex. So we're going to keep forward with doing this. Now, unfortunately, a more thorough drug trial concerning taking Celebrex, Valtrex, and Paxlovid is not complete yet, so there's no real approval to get these things prescribed in combination to start work on that. Hopefully that'll come out before too long, but that's okay. For right now, I focus on today and what I'm going to do today and tomorrow, and not worry about or catastrophize about what may happen farther down the line. In fact, working with my PA and my physical therapist, we've come up with a 6-month plan for me to keep going forward. Now, this 6-month plan includes 3 things. The first of which is continuing the physical activity and hopefully moving forward and increasing that as time goes. Second is the use of medication, and that includes the continuing taking of the Celebrex as well as low dose naltrexone. And thirdly, I'll be starting I should be saying speech therapy, but I couldn't say it. So those are the 3 things: physical activity, medication, and speech therapy. And just for today, I move forward, celebrating the fact that I haven't had the PEM in 3 months. My health hasn't really declined since last fall, and I think I might actually be turning the corner a little bit, and my health may be increasing, if only just a little bit. I still take that as a win. And now finally, I wanted to say that I'm grateful to you for staying to the end of this video. And you can show your gratitude by hitting the like button, commenting, subscribing, and sharing this video with others. And with that, I have to scoot.